Let's go ahead and begin our class with a word of prayer. Father, we're so very grateful for how you provide for us and for the life that you've given us and this wonderful time that we can worship you together. We love being with you and sharing these beautiful truths that you've given us. Help us as we learn and study this morning. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we have come now to chapter 4 of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, and we're going to move just a little faster than we have before. I've scheduled things out here to make sure we finish this at the end of the quarter, and I don't want to disappoint you or me. And we'll do that. So this chapter is a very interesting chapter because it has a progression, and you're going to see this progression going from these first verses here in chapter 1 through 3, verses 1 through 3, where it's the sad part. If you're going to live life under the sun, here's the horrible part that can happen to you. And then he's going to progress from there. What you're going to really see is the same kind of message and character that we have often already seen in Ecclesiastes. That's desired that somehow if I can be wealthy, somehow if I could even be like Solomon, if I could have all of that, look at how great it would be. Life would be fantastic. I would just be on top of the world, and he's going to poke a hole in that big balloon and blow it up. It's just not going to work that way. So he ended chapter 3, verse 22 with, "So I saw that there is nothing better that a man should rejoice in his work, for this is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be after him?" So he's concluded this large section, 224 to 322, telling us that you need to relax. You need to be content. You need to understand your eyes go to God, and you're going to serve God, and you're not going to get anything out of this life that's going to somehow be permanent, have some profit that you can hold on to. Not going to work that way. So he's turning us away from this vanity of all things earthly. But he hasn't convinced us yet, has he? No. The audience is going, I don't know about that. So now he's going to do some other things to show vanity of life here under the sun. Okay? So first section, let's see what you think about it. Verse 1, "I again saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed. And they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been, has not seen evil deeds that are done under the sun." Okay, so here you are, an individual hoping to find life in what you can get here on earth. And what does this section tell you? What's some of the things that just pop at you right here on these first 3 verses?
The fact that you're here chasing these things is worse than if you weren't doing it at all.
Okay, that's true in some ways, but look, back up just a little bit. What's the condition? What condition has this person fallen under?
I think just one of the things that's interesting in this is how it talks about even the oppressors. So like someone who's in a powerful position and they're doing well, and you would think that they would be feeling well about it, doing good, but they're still not okay with it. They're still needing comfort that they can't get here on earth.
Good. The oppressor isn't even. Who likes this guy? He's no good. So exactly. So you've got junk on either side here. So you got this oppressor, and he's all powerful, and then you have the oppressed. Okay, so we live in America. We don't believe in being oppressed. You think about how fortunate we've been to be born here. If you know anything about what goes on in the rest of the world, lots of people are oppressed, aren't they? Lots of people are impressed. So, were you able to control that? If you were one of these people and the rest of the world that are in these, were you able to control that? Were you able not to be born there? Were you able somehow to just extricate yourself from that condition and that situation and just jump on a plane and get out of there? No. No. What's the condition of this individual that's oppressed? What's some of the things he says about him?
No one to comfort.
Pardon?
No one to comfort them.
Okay, there's no one to help him.
They have more proportionate than him.
Yeah, he has no power whatsoever. He's all alone. And that's one of the big things you want to see here, because you can see this happen over and over again in this chapter. He's all alone. And there isn't anything to make. And in those conditions, it's better. The preacher says, it's just better if you'd never been born. What a horrible situation that you've been born into. Belinda.
I don't agree with the fact that this is just another country issue. I believe it has to do, I've spent 50 years working with oppressed people.
Yeah, with oppressed people. That's right. Now,
And
you're a good point.
And I'm not trying, we look at a monetary piece and we think, well, we can get them enough food, and we can do, that's not all. Oppression
right.
is about justice in the courts.
Yeah.
Oppression is about not having someone to speak for them.
Yeah.
And if we think we don't have it, we are awfully naive, because we tend to cocoon ourselves.
Yeah, you're
The
right.
people that we're around are not like that. But that is not the real world out there.
Good point. Thank you for that correction. I think that is an excellent point. Yes, you can find depression everywhere, and even especially in a situation like this. Danny?
I think you kind of get into safe houses.
Yes.
You feel like there's
Nothing you can do.
nothing is under my control.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that doesn't make any difference where you are.
That doesn't make any words. You know, that it's just, again, if we've never been completely in that situation, it's hard for us to relate. And yet, what a helpless situation. And so see what the preacher's doing here? He's really showing just what he got through showing in that whole section before. You don't get to determine these things. There's all these seasons he talked about in the first 8 verses of chapter 3. You don't have power over those things. So what if this is your situation? What if you are in this situation? Can you control it? You cannot. Can you change it? You cannot. Can you snap a finger and no, you cannot. This is the way it's going to be. So now what are you going to do with life? Now if you're living under the sun without spiritual values, that's horrifying. If you are a follower of God in Christ, you understand, I've got hope. Maybe not now, but I've got hope eternally, and that's what gets you through those things. Wayne, you say something.
Is it interesting that he returned and considered, and then he says, and look, is he saying that we cannot find anybody on earth that can change that? To think that we as even a group of people can change that worldwide, you're going to make yourself miserable.
Yeah, you can't do it. Crooked things can't be straight, chapter 115. You keep coming back those principles.
Help the person in front of you,
Yeah.
but the people that are suffering overseas and communism or wherever, I'm sorry, you probably aren't going to be able to
No,
change
you're not going to change that. Now, note that Wayne brings something up there. Notice he says, and I returned some versions, but again, I saw all the oppressions done under the sun and all this. So he basically, and some of the older versions I think do say return. I returned to look at this, but the idea is I've taken a little time out here in chapter 2:24 through 3:22 to show you what's really important here. But now I'm going to come back and I want you to take a look under the sun again. We're going to take a look at vanity again. So that's very important principle there that he's now just laying out. First example example. You're oppressed, you can't escape it, nothing you can do about it. Better if you weren't be born. How do you like life now under the sun? See, you don't want to be there in that condition, Mara.
People use this that they shouldn't have children because it's better if they just weren't born in this world.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And I think that's
Yes,
thinking of
I
it.
know. I've seen some of that. America is so horrible, you just probably shouldn't have children, or something like that. Yeah, well, there again is life under the sun. That's living without understanding of God's purposes. And if you knew God's purposes, you wouldn't think that way. Unfortunately, there are Christians who are thinking that way, and that really shouldn't be. All right, let's transition to the next one. So he draws a conclusion, verse 4 through 6. Then I saw, he looks at another situation. Then I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and a striving after wind. All right, so here's his first presentation here, verse 4. Next presentation that he makes, all toil and all skill come from a man's envy of his neighbor. What am I supposed to learn about that? Living in an under the sun environment where I'm eliminating things godly. What am I supposed to understand with everything that people do is coming out of an envy of their neighbor?
It's like a grass is always greener kind of mindset. That's what you're living in, is that everything around you will always be what you're seeking. It's never what you have. It's always what you don't have.
Good. And so what's the condition of every human being living under the sun then? What are we always doing? I look across the street and I see, that looks nice. I'd like one of those. I'd like to have that. And everything gets pushed that way. Now, what's that do for our contentment? Zero. Just imagine if we didn't have anybody else to look at or compare ourselves to, how much more content would we be with any of our accomplishments? We just go, hey. Be like the Fonz. Most people don't know the Fonz, but he started to comb his hair and he went, hey, it's already good. It's right. It's what we'd be. It's already good. Everything's good. But when we see all this around us, what does every advertisement do? Just about every one of them says, if you don't have this, you're not special. If you don't have this, you're not living. You gotta live, man, and live comes from getting this. So all those things take away from contentment. Teresa.
It doesn't have to be material things.
That's right.
My envy is over people who have family, extended family close by. I never
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
And so I have in the past struggled with clamoring for that. And when I do that, I don't see the great blessings that I have around me, the people and the relationships that are right in front of me, that I can delve into deeply because I'm so busy clamoring for this lifestyle that somebody else has.
Right. Good point. I didn't know that about Teresa's first time she's ever told me that. But it's such a good point, because you start concentrating on what you don't have and what you could have and all of this, and then you lose what you do have. And that's what he said in that section before us. So what do? There's nothing better than to eat and drink and enjoy the good of your labor. It's a gift from God. You enjoy what God has given you. If you keep looking at something else, you're not enjoying what he gave you. So you really get the great impact. This preacher is so smart. Somehow he's inspired of God. That's just great. So see that. So now there's your situation. If you were reading, by the way, the Old King James Version and the New King James Version, he says a little different. It's translated a little differently. Then I saw that all toil, skill, and work that comes about. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. That comes about for this a man is envied by his neighbor. Okay, so there's two ways of looking at this. Both end up to be very, very similar as far as discontentment. Since I grew up with King James, I always understood this passage this other way. Okay, so you work hard and you are successful and God grants you all of these nice things that you have, and what happens? People who used to be your really good friends envy you and don't want to be around you. You think that doesn't happen? Oh my, I have seen that happen over and again. Some of the best friends I've had have gone from absolute poverty to absolute wealth, and I'm rejoicing. You know, there's nothing better than to have a rich friend. It's like, this is fantastic. We were friends when they were poor. We were friends when they were rich. It didn't make any difference. We didn't envy them or anything like that. It was just great. We get to participate in what they have and all this. But they would confide to me in tears how many friends they had lost because of those friends' envy. So what did wealth give them in a broader picture? Not necessarily the greatness that you might have thought you were going to get. And then the other side of the coin is true too, as it's translated in more of the modern versions of everything is driven by envy of a neighbor. Same thing, you have discontentment all the time. So the answer is, verse 5, no. Fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. That's not going to work. So the answer is verse 6. Okay, you read that, tell me how many of us listen to those words. Teresa's going to announce in just about 2 seconds. Barry Kercheville doesn't. Better is a handful with quietness than both hands full of travail and striving after wind. You can even do that in spiritual things. I don't mean you could pursue spiritual things too much, but you can do that in service and act like, somehow I'm going to attain to greatness by, my spiritual service to God. Wrong motive, wrong end result, none of that. Better is a handful with quietness. We need quietness.
It reminds me a little bit of Sabbath.
Good.
I think what was going through a lot of Israelites' minds was like, oh, but here's an extra day where I can go make a little more money.
Yeah.
And God's trying to sit there and tell them, like, this is not going to make you happy.
That's right. Not going to do it. Good point. So there's a number of neat throughout from here on, and well, we've already seen it in 2:24 through 26. But there's a number of little neat stops that the preacher does in order to just give you a nice proverb of wisdom that you can stick with yourself. I should do this. I just had the thought, wouldn't it be cool to have these little ones, in a frame or something in your house? But it's great little things that are there. David, you're going to say something?
Yeah. So you kind of skipped over verse 5, but that's not where the answer is. And I don't totally agree with that, in the sense that this idea of skill and toil and work comes from envy of somebody else. That pretty much anything we desire is, we've seen somebody else have that thing and see that it is good. And that can be a double-edged sword. You can see somebody's wealth or whatever it is and envy them and pursue something empty. You can also see that somebody has a great marriage or a great relationship with their family or with God and say, that's something good that I should pursue. Now, I think almost this idea here is like, if nobody had any, if you just kind of unplug from desire, you're going to end up like the fool who's like, well, I don't want anything, so I'm just going to do nothing. But at the same time, it's this double-edged sword of, if you allow that desire to control you, you're going to end up chasing after things. I think maybe what the preacher's saying here is that desire is more complicated than just following it or allowing it, like like trying to unplug it from it. That it's a
Yeah, the only thing I would say I understand what you're saying, you're right, but what you just did was you blended in a spiritual goal to a text that is only talking about under the sun. So yeah, that's where he is trying. Yes, you can immediately go, but here's a spiritual answer to this that's really good. Yeah, yes, you can do that, but he's not trying to do that. He's trying to get his audience to realize that their pursuit of the things they're pursuing, which is not in a spiritual thought, that is going to be a failure, and here's why. And he says, look, I'm not suggesting that you don't do anything. Even if you were living life under the sun, that wouldn't do any good. You'd just eat your own flesh. But then here's really the answer. And when he gets to verse 6, yes, now let me give you a spiritual answer. I think then you can say, yes, here's the spiritual answer. It's going to be better that you have a handful of quietness, which means you're still laboring, because there's one handful that you fill, but there's a handful of quietness as well. That's the only little nuance there that I think we have to be careful about. Let's move on to the next one. So verse 7, again I saw vanity under the sun. All right, so back to seeing this. One person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil. And his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asked, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. Now he's going to give some reasons why that's a dumb thing to do. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. All right, so he comes back, and now you see how he's gone from one level to another? He started with the oppressed and there's no hope. And then he's gone to the person who works out of envy of his neighbor, and there's no contentment there. And so he gives an admonition. And now there's a person who pursues wealth so much that what happens? What's this problem here?
has no one to enjoy it with.
Yeah, he has no one to enjoy it with. He's spent so much time doing that and laboring in that direction that he's not only probably family, but he's really kind of kept himself from developing relationships, friends, and that's what seems to be indicated when you see verses 9 through 12, that he doesn't have anybody. So now here's all alone. Verses 1 through 3, all alone. Verses 4 through 6, 4 through 5, really, all alone, in the sense that this is not helping me. I'm not able to find contentment in this. And now, okay, so you're just going to give everything to it. That's what Satan always does. You dabble in something that's foolish, wrong, unspiritual, or absolutely sinful, and then you get weary of it and you find out that doesn't do anything, and what's Satan say? You're just not doing it enough. You need to do a little more. It's like a drug. For a while the drug worked. I suppose I never took one, but a while the drug worked, and then it doesn't work. Now I need to take more, and that's what Satan does with our life. You need more, and then you'll find what I'm trying to get you to find. So there's that big warning. So you find all the way now. Now here this guy's just totally, he doesn't even stop and think, why am I depriving myself of pleasure? I'm not even doing it for anybody else. So then that becomes foolish. Comments on that? Questions? All right. So we're seeing the progression go here. In each case, life under the sun is leaving you alone. It's not leaving you with anything that you can, that really has above the sun value. Jared.
Yeah, just a thought on these.
I think we often see the verses 9 through 12, and people reference that in terms of like marriage.
Right.
Oh, you have no one to share it with. Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. But what he actually says is, back in verse 8, you have no one, either a son or a brother.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be careful using this in terms of marriage.
Oh,
like, oh yeah, if you're a single person, then this.
Yeah, you just lose. You're a
Yeah, you
loser.
lose.
That's silly.
But there's so much more to it than that.
Yes.
You can have this as a single person.
You have strong relationships, and then again, if we step above the sun, we're looking at what we have as Christians and what we have as God-fearing people and the relationships we have, which are extremely important and not appreciated enough, really, in that way. Danny?
I think this verse where it says, better is a handful of quietness than 2 handfuls of toil and striving after wind. I think a better translation for us is peace of mind.
Yes, peace of mind. Good. Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
all through this book, he goes through all these things that we have to deal with, and none of it
It's peace of mind.
is peace of mind.
That's
There's only
good.
one answer to that problem.
That's right.
And that's Jesus Christ was the answer of sin. That's the only answer.
That's right. That's a really good way to put it, because I'd never thought of it just that way, but as you thematically go through all the vanity of things earthly, what are you always seeing? There's no end result of peace of mind. There's no end result of any of those things, right?
I know ourselves. Whenever I run into situations that you can't bring to the forefront, whatever this is going to bring you peace of mind. You really don't have it.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Yeah. You don't have something to sell. Yeah, that's right. Good. Okay, so now he comes to the final one, 13 through 16. Better, and there's a lot of better things in the preacher's sermon. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison, this would be the poor guy, the old guy, for he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, of all whom he led. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and a striving after wind. All right, so there's two kings here, right? And you got an old foolish king, and then you got a youth, and the youth seems to be very much like the old foolish king. He went from poverty and nothing, and he comes to the throne, and verse 16 tells you that there was no end to all the people of whom he led. What is that implication there? What does he mean by what this king has come to power, and there's no end to all the people whom he led? What's that idea?
No matter what you do, you're going to be forgotten.
You're going to what?
Be forgotten.
Be forgotten.
It's going to be.
But he got to a peak, didn't he?
Yeah.
He got to a peak, and everybody just, do you not see that every 4 years? Oh my goodness, the next guy going to be elected is going to bring us nirvana. I mean, it is just going to be, and they just go after him like it's just heaven on earth. And 4 years later, shoot the guy and get somebody else. This is it. We don't want him. He's done. In my lifetime, Jimmy Carter was the epitome of that. And of course, most of you hadn't been alive then, but Jimmy Carter's the epitome. I mean, the country was going nuts for Jimmy Carter.
Right on the heels of Watergate.
Yeah, on the heels of Watergate and all, bad Vietnam War. Yeah,
Misery index.
that's right. Oh, the misery index was terrible. That's right. Just give us anybody. And I mean, 4 years later, he got destroyed at the polls. and frankly, personally, he deserved it. Yes.
So this section really reminds me of King David, because he started off as a poor and wise youth.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the bravest stories of David are from his early young days.
Yes.
And then as you see him getting older and wiser and more supposedly wiser, but more powerful, and as a king, a lot of David's greatest downfalls happened in his middle to old age. And even though he's revered in Israel as this is the pinnacle of kingship, he was number 2. So that's pretty sad that your second king was your best one.
Yeah.
And also even with his memory still being there in some aspects, people immediately forgot all the things that were important to him that made him a good king, and even he forgot the things that made him a good king.
Good. In fact, a lot of these people are more revered after they're dead than they were. People can then look back and not, maybe overlook the sins and the flaws and things and go, yeah, there was really some greatness there. And of course, God does that with David. But you're right. I mean, it's just another example of that. So, draw a conclusion here. There is, what is the message the preacher gives to all of us? We're not kings. We're not going to do that. But look at every avenue of life. If it happens to the king, it's going to happen all the way down the totem pole. And what is the message? See, that last part. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. What's the message all the way down the line?
Nothing's going to last.
Yeah.
Everything's fickle.
Everything's fickle. Greatness, quote unquote, is not going to last. There is instability in position. You finally get to where you really wanted to be. Don't count on it staying there. It's not going to be that way. There is no stability in position in life. So that's a hard one to swallow. Because of the labor and the work and everything we do to get to a point where we had hoped maybe early in our life to get to, and boy, it would just be great. I remember a few years ago, my son Scott, he's just he was at that stage, where you're 30 years old and nobody respects you because you're a young punk, and he's just I want to get a little older so people don't quit calling me a young punk and I don't know what I'm talking about. And of course, now he's his age, I don't know, he's 35 or 36, and he's going, yeah, I was a young punk and I didn't know what I was talking about. And so we go through those stages, don't we? We were I want to get to where I'm not being seen as just young and dumb, and then you get old and you're old and dumb. But that's a hard one, and that's a massively good lesson, isn't it? You cannot count on some earthly position. It's going to go away. All right? Very, very important. So, great chapter because of how he takes us from the oppressed and has no hope and has no one and he's all alone, to the king, and yet even he ends up in striving after the wind because it was not stable, it was not permanent. All right? So follow that. That's really good. Now, yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, I think you also see the through line of being alone in this.
Yeah.
He starts out with the oppressed and says there's no one to comfort. And then again, as it goes on, he talks about no one to share his wealth with in verse 7 and 8. And then the king, the impression is, yeah, you're this king and nobody cares.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody remembers you.
That's right.
So I think the message here as well is under the sun, nobody cares about you. Nobody's on your side. You are alone at the end of your life under the sun.
Terrific, good observation. It's good. Now, here's what's shocking. Pretend there's not a chapter division, right? No chapter divisions here in the Bible. And so we're thinking, all right, you've convinced me, preacher, I need to pursue religious things. You can find vanity in religion. Chapter 5:1. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Draw near to listen is better than to offer the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know what they are doing. Be not rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God, for God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore let your words be few. For a dream comes with much business, and a fool's voice with many words. When you vow a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Let not your mouth lead you into sin, and do not say before the messenger that it is a mistake. Why should God be angry at your voice and destroy the work of your hands? For when dreams increase and words grow many, there is vanity. But God is the one you must fear. All right, start with verse 1. Tell me some observations just with verse 1. Michael.
So to your whole point of chapter 4 is addressing this idea of toiling so much that you are trying to amass wealth, and he says, okay, don't do that. So then chapter 5, the natural reaction you said is, okay, let's turn to religion. Well, let me toil in religion and see where that gets me. And it almost seems to be his warning here is like, listen, when you go that path, your job is not to go and say as many things as you can say to try to get the most out of it as you can. Just stop and listen.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark. Good point.
It's a different.
Go ahead.
You cannot be doing evil and be considered a fool even if you're sacrificing.
Good. You can do evil even at the altar.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
People, even in their prayers, are just very flippant and very relaxed, and they don't acknowledge who they're actually talking to.
Yeah. Good. So there is a big warning here. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. The old version said, watch your foot. Similar kind of thing. You imagine, and some of you have heard me say this before years past, but imagine one of those big warning, what are they, diamond-shaped warning signs on the road, stuck right, anybody want to do this? Was it, we got a deacon want to do this? Put one right up in the front of the opening to our front doors that says, watch out. When you enter here, you need to draw near to listen and don't offer a sacrifice of fools. So yesterday when we were talking about in our groups, the group I was in, yesterday we were talking about singing and what we're doing in singing, and mentioned this idea of vows and speaking, and we mentioned how that in our songs, how many times do we make vows? How many times do we make promises? I want to be a worker for the Lord. Yeah, right. Let me get out of here and go back to my fun, all the songs about sacrifice, all the songs. I mean, you could go on and on. Scary thing. If we thought about it more carefully, we might have just two people singing in our song service. Wait a minute, I'm not singing that one. Wait a minute, I can't say that. Wait a minute, I don't want to do that. Over and over and over again. So this is what he's saying. He says, you got to take this to heart, because you are doing evil by doing that. So one of those big warning signs might be valuable at times to warn us about what we're doing. Other thoughts here? So when you look down at the whole text, any quick thoughts that you see? What's he doing in the rest of the text? What's his big warning? Jared.
Yeah, it seems the big reason for it that he mentions a couple times there, verse 2, where he says, "For God is in heaven and you are on earth." So this idea of know your place and be
yes. You are standing before him. You are speaking before him. You are not the cool person here. So what apparently is these people especially doing that he's emphasizing when they go into this worship? Yak, 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 yak. Yeah. Just be careful of your words. Be careful what you're saying. Oh, it looks so good to go in and make the vows. Oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. Be very, very careful with that. God in heaven is hearing you. And he compares these dream things. He says, it's just a comparison. And a dream is a result of a lot of busyness in life. And then the last one, when dreams increase, words grow many. And so it's the idea that these are pie in the sky types of things. A dream is not something that's real. It's not something that's going to happen. And you're putting it in a category of which I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. We've caught ourselves doing it. We've seen others do it. Just, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah.
One of the things that was mentioned yesterday when we were talking about this passage is the sort of the other side of the coin, where this is something that's warned against in a lot of the minor prophets and those kinds of things as well. We have to be careful of what we're offering to God, because it has to be true and right and honest. Otherwise, God doesn't want a false sacrifice. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't show up. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't. I was well, if I can't do it perfectly, then I shouldn't try at all.
Yes.
And that can be the dangerous, wrong interpretation of the text, where just because that we need to be careful and we need to recognize the holiness of God doesn't mean that I'm going to get it perfect my first try. God's grace has room for that.
That is such a good point, because I've seen that too, and there sometimes there'd be a tendency of, well, why even try, because I'm just going to be a hypocrite. No, that's not it. There's a growth process here, but get serious. All he's saying is get serious about this. And I mean, he's not saying don't go. He's saying get serious about this, and then watch out. Be careful. Don't just rashly say things that you're not going to mean and you're not going to follow. But certainly do something. I have made a few long-term vows in my life. One of them was preaching. And I determined that I would never go back on that. And that was a big promise. But there have been certainly times where I thought, can I still keep that vow? And then the other part of me says, shut up and get to work.
But I think to that point, we can also read through this and understand, again, his concept isn't don't make vows.
Sure.
He's actually advocating that we make fewer, higher quality vows.
Good.
That we can fulfill with speed and efficacy. Yeah. And how much different would our worship and our service be to each other if we were willing to say, I can't commit to that because I don't want to commit to so much that I can't do all of it heartily to the Lord. I'm only going to stretch myself as far as I can and be true to what high quality service.
Good. And realize, like in those situations, that's why we're a body. That's why we're a body and not one person is a body. So great point. Hey, great this morning. Fantastic. I hope you're appreciating this as much as I'm restudying this. I've studied it for many years, but I'm restudying it again. And I just get the biggest kick out of learning more about this. So thank you for your input there.